What is going on, everyone? This is Griever, your guys' host as always, bringing you another exciting episode of Behind the Bar Reviews for 7 Deadly Sins. And as you can tell, I'm pretty excited because this chapter 304, has dropped on time. Or, I guess, early, considering it hasn't been on time for months, but it's actually on time. Monday evening, it has come out, so we are going to jump straight into this review and hopefully get this out tonight. Now, before we begin though, guys, I just want to give a quick shout out to all the cats on the Boar's Hat podcast and all the other Tie-Eye reviewers, which I talk to frequently, because I've been slacking on that. I've been slacking my reviews. I'm sorry for that, guys. I always try to give everyone a shout out. So to Keishan Prime, to Grim Reaper, to Sundown Rider, my boy, to just all the guys from the Boar's Hat podcast. And of course, go check out the Boar's Hat podcast. As always, the link will be in the description down below. Can't wait to see if we're going to get together for 304 and see how many people show up for that one. It'll be exciting, so be sure to check that out, guys. And anyway, with that being said, let's just jump in to chapter 304 of 7 Deadly Sins, because we are leaving off with the GOAT moment. We left off last time in chapter 303. We left off with Zeldris showing up like a boss. Ruler, no big deal. Why he still has ruler, I guess we'll find out in this chapter, because that was something brought up. But I want to say right now, I want to say that I called something right now. If you want to go check out that very podcast that I just promoted at the beginning of the video, I brought up the fact that potentially we were talking about the ending of Tie-Eye and about death flags and about things like that. And one of the things brought up here is when the Demon King Meliodas asks Zeldris, what is the meaning of this? At the very beginning of the chapter, like, what are you doing, my son? And he says, listen, I got a deal with Meliodas. I want to talk to him, so could you, like, back off, get out of his body sort of idea? But before we get into that, Father, I just have one question. Did you know that I was in love with Gelda? Did you know about my relationship with the vampire woman Gelda when you asked me to execute them all? And that's when Demon King kind of, thinks to himself for a second and he just goes like, sigh. Oh, my foolish child, you have no idea what it is like to be a parent. You have no idea what it is like to try to help your children, save them from a disease. And your disease is weakness. And I'm just like, okay. So at first, like, he's like a parent, but he's like a twisted parent. I'm kind of getting the vibe here. He's always been like that, but this kind of sums up the Demon King's, like, whole persona, his whole idea about what is good for his children in the long run. It's twisted, but at least it makes somewhat of a twisted sense. Sort of like how the Joker's madness and insanity all kind of make some twisted logic sense. But here he says, the commandment inside of me, because of course remember the 10 commandments, they gain sentience and more intelligence the more they get together, as we saw in male psyche and such. They're in there and they're saying, look, like, I know everything. And he basically recites all the information. For those of us who may or may not have forgotten, he basically recites all the things that happened to Zeldris. Just like, I know what you did. I know you made a deal with Meliodas. I know that you, you fell in love with Gelda. I knew that you were trying to steal the Demon King throne. I knew that you actually sealed them when I told you to execute them instead, and all this fun jazz. And here's where I'm going to say I called it. As I said at the beginning, on the podcast, I said, what's an ending part for Zeldris? I said, well, if they kick out the Demon King and Zeldris still alive and stuff, they aren't going to fight. He just wants his girl. Meliodas gives him Gelda, and he just goes home. He rules over the demon realm and agrees to leave the mortal plane and leave everyone alone. This chapter takes it one little tweak step farther than I actually did, but I did call that Zeldris would bring in an era of peace. And that's exactly what he was striving for. The Demon King confirms it as the commandment is basically the thoughts and feelings Zeldris has had in partial form, from what we can gather, all in the Demon King. And he now knows it. And he said, you're telling me that this is what you wanted? You just wanted to spend your days with your vampire and steal away my throne and rule over the demon realm with actual peace and harmony in the demon realm? Are you insane? And then he brings up another point, something that I believe I considered a long, long time ago. We remember about the reverse effect. It was brought up to us when we are first introduced to the commandments in the form of the commandment of truth with Gal. When he states something, truth can affect the user. The commandments can affect their own users. And this was something when we learned about piety. Now, I don't think I ever really thought it would go this far, but this makes perfect sense. The Demon King right here, just after spilling all this information, then goes on to say, and proving that I was right about Zeldra's true intentions for the demon realm, he says, but, of course, because of this commandment, I'm not exactly sure of the line, but the way he says it implies that because of the commandment, you were still obedient to me, so I overlooked it all. And it makes perfect sense. Piety potentially may or may not have caused Zeldris to actually follow the Demon King's orders. Remember that he cannot turn his back on the Demon King. So Zeldris still had to find loopholes and still do whatever his father asked. Remember when he said, but father, why do you need Meliodas? I can, and no. And he's just like, and he's just taking it. He's always been taking the brunt of all the stuff. It's because maybe Zeldris is or isn't aware of it. Has it affected him before? We don't know. But piety, remember, brings about not only subservient to Zeldris by de facto of the Demon King, if you turn your back on him, it would affect Zeldris himself as well. So if Zeldris were to turn his back while holding the commandment of piety, then he would have been obedient anyways, forced against his will. So it was a total rock hard place with that. He was obedient or he was forced obedient. He didn't have much of a choice. It's starting to make a little more sense. I like that. I like that concept. I don't think I've really thought about that too much in depth, but it makes perfect sense. If any of you guys called it, please let me know down in the comment section. But that's something I find very interesting. It makes a whole lot of sense. Now, this is where he formulates, once again, he brings about all the masks that shattered, and the symbols kept changing, but apparently that's irrelevant. The mask that kind of shattered on the ground, he's now reformed it into this creature of moments, or whatever it's called, and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, now it's going to be Zeldris, and this very creepy but very interesting design, very unique design for this creature that is reformed, and clearly, I'm guessing, a more powerful version of the Sighing Sage mask. This is now a more embodied form. So he took the remnants of what caused and is like, all right, double power. We're going to pull, a resurrection thing here. And now he's brought back into this, I forget what it's called, something of moments, creature of moments, humanoid of moments, something like that. And he's about to go toe-to-toe with Zeldris. And then, of course, we jump away to the battle within Meliodas' psyche or spirit. Now, here's where, no matter how badass this looks, no matter how cool it looks to see Meliodas kicking the ever-loving shit out of the Demon King, it's still not making much sense. I need to correct something. I need to correct something right now that I managed to, after doing some rereads before the 303 podcast, I managed to correct myself, but not before I got my own review out, is that when we initially saw these balls of darkness, what I totally missed in my last review, guys. I was thinking, is it full counter? I didn't see the kanji. Is this the same power he used to destroy the Demon King's arm before he left Purgatory? Like, what's going on here? I didn't actually notice the balls of darkness on the page. I was just trying to get my review out at the time, so I must have just flipped by. So that's my bad, so please ignore all of my speculation on that. Though I still say, Nakaba, I want to know, what is the original magical power? Why hasn't he used it till now? Yada, yada, yada. But besides the point, yes, now I realize it's the same things, the condensed power ability that King was using in the Druid trial area. And then Meliodas did it with his own darkness. He covered his body in his demon form and then sunk it down into a compressed little ball. And of course they talk about how this is clearly a way more upgraded power and such. So, okay, once again, alright. The power scaling in this is absolutely ridiculous. No matter how cool it looks, no matter how awesome the actual fight appears, and the battle damage, and the epicness, everything looks stunning. It is well done artwork, well done fight scenes. but it's still, power scaling wise, makes no sense. The entirety of the last, I don't know how many chapters, 10 to 15 chapters, has made no sense. When they were in purgatory, Bon and Meliodas could not lay a finger on the Demon King except at the very little end there, and it took Meliodas using his actual power, his real power, which he hasn't used yet, to be able to do any real damage to the Demon King. Now all of a sudden, Bon shows up to a more powerful, and once again, can we stop arguing about this? There is an empty husk in purgatory. There is 100% of the Demon King's spirit, soul, body, whatever you want to call it, inside Ten Commandment Meliodas right now. They're simply fighting 50-50 right now. But remember that he went into a Meliodas body, the perfect vessel, which is additive, plus the Ten Commandments, half the Demon King's power. Bon being able to go toe-to-toe with him when he couldn't in purgatory lay much of a hand on him is still a power scaling issue. Then he was getting his ass kicked. Now all of a sudden he's able to do stuff again. That is an issue. And now the same thing here with Meliodas. Because now, I'm not going to call it a Nakama power boost. Remember, I'm trying to keep away from the fairy tale vibes we have been getting lately. Because once again, as I said in my last review, guys, we cannot, just because one Nakama power boost, one morale power boost, they didn't turn into some friendship sword like Scott Pilgrim. They didn't turn him into some ultimate dragon adult form or anything like that. It's not some fairy tale level thing. Fairy tale just over-abused something that has been used and shown in many, many times. It's okay to have a Nakama support you in a battle. And we've seen this happen before. I mean, hell, we see it all the time we even see it in such great series like Full Metal Alchemist. There's a lot of battle scenes there, no spoilers. But there's a lot of fights there where there's just a support group behind some of the characters, egging them on. They can win the battle. They can win the day. So, once again, this is not a bad thing. The cringy lines, okay, I'll give it to you. But he was kicking ass before any of them got there. And once again, because this is the spirit realm and stuff, his spirit was tarnished, it was broken, it was shattered, it was whatever you want to call it, and it was fractured, and it was a gaping, growing wound as the seconds passed by when the Demon King lied to him. And I know a lot of people don't like that. I know Sundown complained about that, and he makes a valid point, very valid point there. But for me, I'm just taking each part in stride. I'm like, okay, it's okay. There's bigger issues at play. So I'm just like, all right. And here we see that he is still kicking ass. The same ass kicking, it appears to me, that he did before they got there. But I reiterate once again, that makes no sense. It makes no sense without his original magical power, the ability he used to cut the Demon King's arm off. What changed between that moment, the moment right before it when he couldn't do much damage to him, and now that they are both inside a controlled Demon King body? Why is he able to do so much damage with techniques that he picked up from King and now is kind of perfected or whatever, not using that ability? Like, he's kicking too much ass for there not to be the power in play, and that is disappointing. I wanted to see this power. I'm a little like I'm on the fence about that. Now the rest of it is okay. Once again, some cringeworthy lines, but we get each of the characters basically saying, like, Meliodas simply says, guys, look, I'm fine now. You guys can go. You better go help Bon. I'll be back soon. And this is a good moment. This will be well animated with the right soundtrack. I can see it now. This will be done well if this gets an anime up to this point. Because we see all the characters, they're monologuing, saying, Escanor starts. And it's good to start with Escanor because it's setting the tone right away. He says, listen, I know that I'm a handful to deal with at noon. And I'm even useless at night. But, Captain, I would lay down my life for you because you are first and foremost, you are my captain, but you are first and foremost my friend. And I will help you no matter what. And I'm like, true knight Escanor, the embodiment of a real knight of Britain. I love it. I love it even in this form. He is still a badass. He sacrificed his power. He's done everything. This guy is the epitome of a true royal knight, and I love it. Then we get Merlin talking about her promise. We all know what that is. and it's just kind of like Escanar's like, what promise and stuff, and Meliodas, he's kind of joking around doing this battle thing, but I mean, he's totally owning. So at this point, it doesn't matter. Gother says, thank you so much for giving me my heart. It's because of you guys that I was able to find my heart and find it again, sort of idea. If I hadn't met you all, if I hadn't met Nadja, if I hadn't met the Seven Deadly Sins, if I hadn't had you, Captain, I wouldn't have never come to the point I'm at where I can understand, and so thank you for that. Deanne and King, same idea. King says, I need to apologize to you properly, Captain. You have to make it back. Deanne says, the strongest sin of all of us, go, go, go. And Elizabeth, says, you better come back. I'll be waiting for you. And Meliodas just keeps saying, yes, we're going to all come back. I promise. We'll party all night, and I'll be there soon. Go help Bond, because I'm about to be finished up here. And once again, some of the cringeworthy lines, like, because you guys are all here beside me, I feel your power seeping into me, sort of idea. Your emotions, your feelings have given me strength. Cringeworthy line. But once again, it didn't actually... Remember, this is the spirit world, where his actual emotional state is a factor. We saw what it did with one little shred of doubt did at the end of, what was it, 302? At the end of chapter 302, we saw what a little bit of seeds of doubt did. He couldn't even get back up. He tried 3 or 4 times at the end of that chapter to get back up. But that shred of doubt that the Demon King could potentially be telling the truth, no matter how much he tried to convince himself the man's lying, there was still that seed of doubt. He can't see it, so how does he know? And that was the seed of doubt. So in this world, this psyche, this captain's heart, this is where emotions do play a factor, and at least that makes sense when he says, your guys' feelings and emotions have given me the strength to continue. It's not a bad statement. It's a anathema power boost, but at least it makes sense for the realm they're in. It's not just the mortal plane. So they're going to go back and help Bond. I don't know exactly what they're going to do. They're still going to be in their physical bodies, completely exhausted and unable to do anything like they were doing for the past little while. But after all this, guys, after all this, we jump back over to Zeldris versus this moment's creature thing. And he totally kicks its ass. And here is where we come to the climax of the chapter, ladies and gentlemen. And yes, I know it sounds sexual. Stop being 13-year-old children. Now, this is so good. This little inner monologue while Zeldris is kicking the crap out of this wannabe demon creature thing, looks like something from a Stephen King novel. He just a very simple, it's not Eisen level, it's not Sosuke Eisen level, but it's getting there, it's getting close, it's getting up there, because he even says, I could still never bring myself to forgive you for betraying us, for betraying the Demon Clan, for betraying me. But in the end, I can't help but admire, I can't help but acknowledge that you, and of course, just in case we're unclear here, he's talking, of course, about his older brother, Meliodas, that you, of all people, I understand now, you did what I could not bring myself to do. You managed to make an enemy of the entire world, of your family, of your friends, of everything you hold dear, for the sake of those who are dearest to you. The one thing Zeldris couldn't do. He found loopholes, but he wasn't able to he took a half measure. He wasn't able to take both steps. He turned his back. He went down the dark alley. He didn't stand out in the street and proclaim it. He just went back into the shadows, and he sees what Meliodas did for the love of his life. And Zeldris, right here, envies and wishes he could have done what his brother did. He acknowledges the strength it must have taken, because it's something Zeldris knows in his heart he could not do. And that's really powerful. And then, I mean, it just forget about what he massacres this thing with. Just like shows up and it's like close quarters. It kind of reminds me of this scene right here. Reminds me of Bleach. Now, I know, guys, I talk about Bleach a lot, but give me a break, guys. It's one of my favorite manga of all time, even for all its flaws, is where we see Ichigo fighting his inner hollow. Once again, spoilers alert. Spoiler alert. he's fighting his inner hollow and stuff, and this is where he's trying to train and all that stuff and learn different things, and this is where he does something that he never thought of before, and he ends up using this skill in his battle against Grimjow, and that's where he's learned the Getsuga Tensho, and all that stuff. But his hollow form has different ways of using his Zanpakuto, spinning it by the hilt and doing all these different unique maneuvers, different ways of fighting that Ichigo never really thought of. He's so straightforward. And this is where he takes Zangetsu, he goes up against him in close quarters and then Getsuga Tensho, point blank range. Zeldris right here doing the exact same shit, and it's badass. He's like, alright, flies right up to him, like turns on Ominous Nebula, flies right up to him and just goes, and shreds him to pieces. Proximity alert, you're dead. It's awesome. What a way. Like, Zeldris, the GOAT, still the GOAT. I don't care what Meliodas is doing to the Demon King right now. As badass as that looks, it's not as impressive. It's not as cool. It's just not. These little balls of darkness, it's like, ode to when he fought King and stuff. No, get out of here. Zeldris, Ominous Nebula, point blank range. That was cool. That was highlight of the chapter right there. So, at this juncture, he's like, alright, did this, and then he's like, alright, Father, I took care of that distraction. Now, why don't you get the hell out of my brother's body, and we'll discuss this, and boom! Death flag alert, ladies and gentlemen, because, oh, wait a minute now, Nakaba has kind of forgotten about that whole Seven Hearts thing, hasn't he, at this point? I mean, you have to consider a few things here. The Seven Hearts thing really has never made any sense. Melisukla was completely burned to a crisp by Escanor from the inside out. You would think that would burn away her hearts. Chandler also took a giant blow to completely eradicate this entire area in his chest. And, I'm assuming, do the demons move their hearts around? Because what we've seen of the hearts is that they are in the general location of where a human heart is, unless Chandler's got one in his foot, and Melisukla's got one hanging around outside of here, and Zeldris got one, I'm curious, has Nakama kind of forgotten about the Seven Hearts thing? Because clearly a lot of demons are surviving where their Seven Hearts would be, well, gone. And, so, right here, a lot of people are going to say, no, it's a big slash, but we've seen Zeldris come back from bad injuries. Elizabeth is going to come back. He's going to heal. Zeldris might start refusing, but Elizabeth will say something. That your brother always loved you, something like that, and force him to let her heal him. Something like that, you know what I mean? I don't think Zeldris is going to die here. I really don't. We're getting the warnings. We're getting the death flag moments because this is where Zeldris starts falling. It looks bad. Trust me, it looks bad. He's starting to faint and stuff. But we've seen Zeldris in bad situations before. And he says, if anyone can do this, I know you can do what I couldn't. Meliodas, sort of thing. He's thinking to himself. Inner monologue, continuing sort of idea. Now, Bond was pushed to the ground during this exchange. And he gets up from the ground and kicks Demon King right in the face. Once again, this makes no sense power scaling wise to me to this day, but it still looks cool, and I love Bond, so it still looks cool. Once again, I'm so conflicted, guys. If you can't already tell, this review is going long as hell. I am very conflicted because a lot of this doesn't make sense. A lot of it is retcons and inconsistencies and power scaling problems galore. But these are some of my favorite characters in the series doing badass things with badass artwork and badass fighting. So it's so hard for me to honestly sit down and complain about it. It really is. But I do acknowledge all these problems with going on in chapter to chapter here. The last couple pages is Meliodas, striking him with a bunch of the condensed darkness balls, shooting them at the Demon King, getting him completely, he is just shredded. His sword has been shredded, his body has been shredded, he's coughing up the blood, and at the last panels, Meliodas just says, I'm going to finish this with the final blow. And that's basically the chapter. We do see a reaction shot from Mail really quick, but he's been useless, really useless. What was the point in Escanor giving him sunshine at this point? A 5 o'clock PM Escanor would have done more crap than Mail has at this point. He did one thing. He did greatest son against the sinner. We know the sinner's coming back because that would just be ridiculous if that was the end. Too unceremoniously for a very underused villain. And then he held off Zeldris for a couple minutes. Like, it was just to showcase Mael, and then Mael has been useless thus far. He hasn't even attempted or tried to do anything. So, yeah, I don't know why he's even there anymore. But that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of the review. That is the end of the chapter. What did you guys all think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? As you can tell, I'm pretty hyped. The chapter is pretty hyped, even though, once again, it's got its flaws, but I'm still hyped for the series. We're getting a lot of conclusions to shit. Did not see some of this stuff coming. I'm hoping for really good reactions from a lot of the Boar's Hat guys, and I'll be sure to check out their individual reviews. Once again, go check out the podcast and go check out all the guys I named at the beginning of the video. Bunch of great guys. So yeah, this has been Griever with your chapter 304 of 7 Deadly Sins. As always, guys, drink responsibly, and we'll see you back here next time.